Hey, good afternoon. Gabe DeArmond here. Welcome in to the final PowerMizzou.com live show of Missouri basketball season. Drew King going to jump in and join us in just a minute. Want to thank you guys for joining us. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that. We're still going to be doing things, just maybe not quite as regularly, not on a weekly basis, but we are still going to be doing shows on YouTube and podcasts and all that. So do all the things that help us out on YouTube. Feel free to add your comments, your questions, all that. We'll get to those throughout the show. Want to remind you guys, we've been brought to you all year and one final time by James Carlton State Farm Insurance. Get in touch with James at carltoninsurance.net or give him a call at 314-961-4800. Actually did have a chance to kind of touch base the other day, and James has heard from you guys and has gotten in touch with some of you guys. So some of you guys are now his customers, and certainly we appreciate that. If you have not yet done that, reach out to James. He's going to try to get you a deal on your insurance. And if he isn't able to do that, if he can give you a quote and you tell him you heard about it on Power Mizzou, he's going to donate $20 to Every True Tiger Foundation and Power Mizzou's specific arm within that, Mizzou's NIL collective. So we're bringing in Drew King now. And Drew, nothing really specifically to talk about because we did 19 live shows from Sacramento last week. But you know, just kind of overarching thoughts. Year one in the books, and we kind of moved forward into what has now become a season of its own in portal season for Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, well, just not to overlook the season we just have, but like that was a pretty good first year out of Dennis Gates. I said it, kind of before the season with kind of the situation that he had. Um, I think that he put together just about the best roster that he could, given the circumstances, right? By bringing in all those new guys. And I don't think, like we said before, people expected it to turn out the way it did with them winning 25 games. But man, like that's going to be a really fun team to talk about a couple of years from now, a team to look back on. So yeah, I think it was just an awesome year for basketball in general, but Mizzou basketball specifically. And so going into this offseason, you're wondering like, what can Dennis Gates do to make this even better, right? Because is already a really good team, and they're losing some pretty key pieces. And so the question becomes, what about this is sustainable long term?
Right, agreed. And I should have mentioned this right off the top, but I posted on the message board today. This is the 1 year anniversary of Dennis Gates being announced as Missouri's basketball coach. It's March 22nd, 2022. There are some old takes exposed out there to be had, certainly from this day a year ago. But look, the only guy that I think was hired last cycle that anybody could argue had a better season than Dennis Gates would be Jerome Tang at Kansas State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I can't think of anybody else.
no, and if you look at SEC coaches specifically, like that was one of the reasons Dennis Gates had a really good case to be coach of the year was because he kind of did a lot better than everybody else in the conference, especially the first year head coaches, the 5 of them that were coming in.
Yeah, for sure. And do want to again, first of all, Jared, thank you, sir, for tossing a little bit of money our way as you have done throughout the year. And like Jared brings up a good point. More than anything else, this season was a good time. We enjoyed it. I think you guys enjoyed it. We had fun being able to kind of talk about it here and certainly write about it. I mean, it was an enjoyable team to cover. Felt like we got to know some of the guys a little bit and a little bit better out in Sacramento last week. So Jared, really appreciate that, man. Thank you for being here with us, most weeks. And like I said, it seemed like a whole bunch of times last week. And again, I see your comments and we're going to get to those kind of in the second part of the show. But I wanted to do just kind of some big picture stuff. So somebody had asked me this question the other day, and I'm curious what you would say, Drew. When was the moment that you kind of started to take this team seriously? Like, okay, hang on, maybe this is better than we thought it was going to be.
Probably the Illinois game. I think after that one, it was like, oh, like I think that one kind of confirmed what I kind of thought of the team, which is that they were pretty squarely going to be on the bubble, with a chance to get to 20 wins. And then that Kentucky win made me think like, no, it's like they're going to be better than everybody thinks that they are. It's funny too because it was really DeAndre Golston's buzzer beater in the UCF game that I feel like turned everything around for them.
Yeah,
because they were coming off that Kansas loss, right? And all of their wins to that point were against mid majors, and then like the overtime win over Wichita State, which retrospectively like wasn't really all that impressive, right? And so yeah, I think that Illinois win where they just came out and was the better team from buzzer to buzzer. I think that was probably the point of the season that made me think like, okay, they're going to be good.
Yeah, and you mentioned the moment when I thought it was 6 days later, because the Illinois game, like, don't get me wrong, I would argue maybe the Illinois game was their single most impressive game of the year, but also kind of in the back of your head was, hang on, is Illinois good? And okay, maybe this was just one night. Maybe this was a fluky thing. Well, 6 days later, after Christmas, they came out and did the same thing to Kentucky. And that was the point where I said, okay, this is not an accident. There's nothing fluky about this. This is actually a good basketball team. And the other thing I kind of wanted to do here, and I think you might have just mentioned one of the three, but give me, I don't care. It's a game, it's a shot, whatever. Give me kind of your top 3 moments of this year.
Oh gosh, top 3 moments. I'm
actually, or not even necessarily 3 best, just the 3 that kind of maybe stick out to you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually not going to include the UCF game winner because I wasn't in person for that one. The Tennessee game winner was pretty impressive to me, especially like the way that they won that game, being ahead by 17, giving up the lead, and then eking out that shot from half court was pretty crazy. I'd say that Nick Honors' game winner in overtime against Mississippi State, that one made us all fall out of our chairs when we saw it happen. And then number 3, I'll say like pretty much any Aiden Shaw dunk that happened this year. That was my favorite thing to watch in every game, was just the way that he was able to get up above the rim. He's awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's weird that I think 2 of my 3 are against the same team. But I'd say number 3 is just kind of making it to Saturday in the SEC conference tournament. Had the win over Tennessee, the 10-2 run to finish. Number 2, I think it's the Golston game winner. But it's the entire last 8 seconds. It's, hang on, they just won because the other team committed a lane violation. Not only is this team good, this team also appears to be lucky.
It was also like Sean East telling Santiago Vescovi, like, you're gonna miss one of these, like, just knowing.
And so that one stuck out. And then, like, having been here for this whole time and covered this program for this whole time, it's winning a game in the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's the second half against Utah State, and specifically the I think we called it the Kobe Brown legacy game, right? Hey guys, just give me the ball. I'm going to carry you to this second round. And I know there have been some people that it said, somebody just said it to me this morning, actually. It felt like they won a game and just thought, okay, they've done everything they came to do, and they relaxed a little against Princeton. First of all, I don't think that's given Princeton enough credit. But also, second of all, if that's what happened, I don't even blame them. Because to me, that was the whole thing. I mean, I said on Saturday morning, I don't care if they lose to Princeton by 20 points. There can be 0 complaints about this season. So blame me for speaking it into existence if you want to. But like, to me, I mean, that is more than anything else he did. He got that monkey off the back of this program. And now you don't go into next year with just like you're going to go into next year with the pressure and the expectation of needing to make the tournament again. But you don't go into it with this, oh my God, how has Missouri not won a tournament game since 2010?
Yeah, exactly. Gabe, we forgot one like crucial part of the season, which was Ben Sternberg's debut coming into the game, taking 3 dribbles and then pulling up from half court and making it in his first game as a Missouri Tiger. So I wanted to include that in there as well.
Fair point. Also, anytime Demoy Hodge pulled up 1-on-3 and shot a 3-pointer on a break, that was my favorite. My very favorite thing about the season. I mean, I've said it 100 times. I love watching the dude play. He's my favorite Missouri player since Marcus Denman, just from a sheer basketball entertainment standpoint. That's and before we get to the comments and questions, kind of curious on your thoughts on this, because look, it's probably going to get a little more common in the era of free transfers and all that. But what I think is kind of cool about this team is it's a lot of guys that are only going to be at Missouri 1 year. I mean, some of them will end up more, but like Gomillion, Golston, and Hodge are only here 1 year, and throw Sternberg in there too. And just in those 9 months, I feel like they have put them like Dre Golston is never going to be forgotten by Missouri.
Yeah.
You know, Demoy Hodge is a lot of people's favorite player. Trey Gomillion, I think people gained an appreciation for him. To do that in 1 year, they've built up a lot of things that a lot of guys that stay places 3 and 4 years don't build up.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment. I think it was the LSU game. And it was the game that Demoy Hodge broke the single season steals record.
Right.
And he told us that he actually talked to Phil Pressey before the season, and he realized like, oh, you've got like the career steals record, right? And Demoy goes, he's lucky, right? Like he's because I would have caught him. And I think that's kind of like the type of legacy that they're leaving behind, is that like, even though Demoy isn't ever going to be on the top 10 in the program for steals or 3-pointers, like I think he's still going to go down as one of the best defenders and one of the best 3-point shooters that the program has seen, just because of what he was able to do this year.
Yeah, for sure. And then you throw in guys like, you know, Noah Carter, Nick Honor, Sean East. We expect all those guys back, but, you know, to kind of really in half a career be able to endear themselves to a fan base, I think says a lot. And, you know, Sam says, curious to see who comes back next season and who they add transfer portal wise. And that really is the next few months. So just going to kind of start to go through some of these questions and comments. And Eddie says Mosley's return next season seeming more promising with his Twitter interactions with DeMarcus Sharp. So for those who don't know, DeMarcus Sharp is a transfer from Northwestern State. I believe they played together at Missouri State.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, you know, Sharp was retweeting a guy who had committed to Austin Peay. The Northwestern State coach committed to Austin Peay. Mosley jumped in and said, I assume you're headed there next. And that is where most people expect DeMarcus Sharp to end up. Now, DeMarcus Sharp came out yesterday and said he was considering Austin Peay, Loyola, Chicago, and Missouri. Well, that was only one day after he entered the portal. And as I put on our message board, we don't yet know that Missouri will take him. I mean, they are talking to him. They're recruiting him, but like if DeMarcus Sharp called Missouri today and said, I want to come, I think there's going to be a hang on. We got to see what else comes in the portal. Like we can't do this yet.
Right.
So I don't think Mosley is really in any way, you know, recruiting Sharp to Missouri or anything. Like I don't take that interaction as any indication about what Isaiah will do next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I think it's more their relationship that they had at Missouri State more than Isaiah trying to get DeMarcus to come to Missouri.
And Isaiah could come back next year, right? Like he's got the year. We have And hopefully most of you guys are subscribers and have been on the message boards. I mean, we have kind of debated this one to death, but Isaiah's one where like this is a two-way street. Not only does he have to be ready to come back and want to come back, but Missouri has to want him to come back. And like, I don't know a sensitive way to put that, but the simple fact of the matter is, you know, if you're investing a scholarship in a kid and stuff like that, like you only get 13 of them. That's kind of tough to do if you aren't in a situation where you know he's going to be available and be a full member of the team.
Yeah, and it's tough too because you think about what Missouri needs with this next roster, right? I mean, they're losing
Isaiah Mosley.
Yeah, I mean it's Isaiah Mosley because they're losing Demoy Hodge and DeAndre Golston, who are like two of the team's top 3 leading scorers, right? And Isaiah could be a really big factor if he was available to play. And I think that was just the main issue was that he was never available to play. It was never made clear why that was, but for whatever reason, it's hard to think that he's going to be the first option they go for when they look at who to replace those 2 starting spots.
Yeah, and like there, once again, there's no bad feelings. Isaiah seems to like it here. His teammates and coaches seem to like him. But in the end, like yes, you want to help kids and you want to do right by kids, but you also have to win basketball games. And if you're just starting out saying everybody we play is doing that with 13 guys, and we might be doing it with 12, like basically what I'm saying is the personal stuff, whatever it was, has to be ironed out before Missouri can commit to doing that. And Bradley asked, I'm surprised it took 3 comments to get to this, but Bradley asked the question, percentage chance Kobe returns. And I always make a joke of percentage questions because, I mean, either he does or he doesn't, right? Like there's not a 57% chance he stays, 43% chance he goes, but based on everything I've heard, like I would say the chances that he's back are better than the chances that he's not as of right now. I mean, like I don't gamble, but if you gave me some of your money and said, here, put this on Kobe at Missouri or Kobe not at Missouri next year, I would put it on Kobe at Missouri.
Yeah, it's crazy, Gabe. I was actually going to say 57% chance he comes back. No, but so I was looking, I think we both did this. We kind of both looked at kind of the draft sites that are projecting mock drafts and all that. And the highest that he's kind of listed right now is middle of the 2nd round, which, I think that would get him a 2-way contract where he's bouncing between the G League and the NBA somewhere. I think the very best case scenario for him would be what happened with Jalen Williams last year. He was a junior out of Santa Clara, had a kind of a breakout 3rd season in college ball, and was listed in the middle of the 2nd round going into March. And then he had this really good combine and rose all the way up into the lottery and got taken by the Thunder. And he's been one of the best rookies in the league this season. And so I think that that's what Kobe's like very best case scenario would be. Jalen Williams had a really good combine where like his measurements were good. He played in the scrimmage and looked dominant there. So that's a pretty big uphill battle for Kobe to climb. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's going to be a difficult challenge, especially because he's also a year older than Jalen Williams was at the time. So that's why, to me, it does seem a little bit more likely that he comes back for another season, because I don't know that, that going in the 2nd round would be all that worth it.
Right. And the comp is really Drew Timme from last year, right? If you're looking for a way for him to come back, I mean, Drew Timme was an All-American. He had done basically everything he could do, but he also knew I'm probably not making an NBA roster next year. So all these crazy guys, or Oscar Tshiebwe was in the same situation. All these crazy Gonzaga fans, all these crazy Kentucky fans, like, I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to make more money by coming back to school than I can make going and playing basketball either in the G League or overseas or wherever it would be. And oh, by the way, I get to be big man on campus for another year, right? And I get to kind of cement my name in this program's history and all that. So that's really the pull. I mean, don't get me wrong. If Kobe goes through this thing and anybody tells him we think you can go in the first round, he'll leave and he should leave. But if that doesn't happen, that's where the decision comes into play. And it's, I don't know if I said it on our show, but I've said it multiple places. Like the irony here is that the most important thing in Dennis Gates' first offseason was to keep Kobe Brown. And the most important thing in Dennis Gates' second offseason is to keep Kobe Brown, and for everybody who, like, for all the NIL is going to kill college sports and this is the death of everything, if it keeps Kobe Brown in college, like, maybe Missouri fans shouldn't hate it too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a gift and a curse, right? Because there are definitely issues going on with NIL and college sports right now. But if it keeps like good players here longer, where they don't have to go over to the minor league in France to get money to help themselves a little bit,
Right.
I think that it's a super beneficial thing, right? Because if Kobe were a late second round pick, that's kind of the decision he faces, right? Am I going to go to the G League where they pay $40,000 a year to play? Do I go overseas where I can get that money, but you're also kind of secluded from everybody else? Or do I stay at Missouri for another season and maybe have the best of both worlds, right? So
Right.
I think that's kind of where the NIL thing will play a factor.
And Holy Schilt wants to know, how soon do you expect an announcement about anybody returning or committing? So Kobe's going to be a while. I think the deadline to withdraw from the draft is June 1st. It's right around there. So Kobe's decision very well could take, up until close to then. But other than that, like, other than Isaiah Mosley, I shouldn't say I don't expect like an I'm back announcement, because that's what kids do now. Like, they get these graphics made and they're like, hey, I'm coming back. And it's like, well, of course you're coming back. Where else were you going? We knew you were coming back, right?
I also love that everybody gets a graphic too. Like,
right, yeah.
That's the thing.
Like some kid who was a freshman who redshirted last year, coming back. Well, yes, we know that's what you're doing. But like, we joke, but like, I don't expect some grand announcement from like Nick Honor or Noah Carter or Sean East. I think, like, we all expect them back. I think the only announcement we need to pay attention to is, for some reason, they would say they aren't.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I would expect, because I think that you wrote yesterday in kind of our transfer tracker, like, if Missouri's roster like just stands as it is with the new guys coming in, they're over the scholarship limit. So something has to get worked out where they are able to fit everybody in.
Right. And let's be clear, that includes Isaiah Mosley coming back on scholarship, which we don't know about. That includes Mabor Majak coming back on scholarship, which I kind of get the feeling that was a situation where it was like, hey, we only have 12 scholarship players, so the 13th is yours for this year. But I don't know that he's necessarily guaranteed to be on scholarship next year.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and because from what I remember, like, Dennis talked about him being a walk-on. Yeah. So I kind of agree with you there. I don't know that Mabor being on scholarship is part of the long-term plan for the roster.
Yeah. Kyle says, how active of an offseason do you expect? I mean, active, like, I would be surprised if they don't add at least two more guys to this roster and lose, at least two. And I think it very well could be more than that, because that's just how college basketball is now. I read yesterday there were already 616 kids in the portal. And like, there's a lot of, like, I mean, there's 16 teams that aren't done with, well, plus I guess a few in the NIT. There's like 20 teams that aren't even done with the season.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, it's a lot that's going on in the portal. And I think it's interesting too, because there's some SEC players, like good SEC players, who have put their name in the portal. So I mean, I don't know what Mizzou is going after. Like we said, we'll have to see what they lose, but I think that there's some real names that they could realistically have a chance with
Right.
that are out there
And
right
I
now.
mean, what the thing that nobody can expect because you don't expect it, but it's happening. Like I can't remember the kid's name and I couldn't pronounce it if I could remember it, but like a starter at Arizona is transferring.
Hmm.
Like I mean, they were a 2 seed and he
Yeah.
started, but like it's kind of the old why is he why does a dog lick its balls? Because it can. That's why kids are transferring, because they can. They just like want to see a different place, man. So that's what's going on. That's my crass analogy to the
Thank
college
you for
basketball transfer
that.
portal. Stuart says if a lot of these potential returnees do in fact come back, there aren't really very many places. Yeah, but again, and I've said this for 20 years, the question is how many spots do they have? And the answer is always how many they need. Like, if there is a guy that they like in the portal, if Jaron Stevenson wants to classify, whatever, they're going to figure it out. And here's the other dirty little secret about college sports in the NIL era. You don't got to be on scholarship to be on campus.
Hmm.
There are kids at, I would venture to bet every Power Five school in America, either in football or basketball, who we all just assume are scholarship players who are actually getting their school paid for with NIL money. That is because the rule of college sports is put in a rule and the coaches are going to find the loophole. And that's the loophole.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because like the NIL stuff is not public record too, right? So like you can't necessarily prove that
Right.
that's going on, but it's going on.
No, it's 100% going on. And I mean, like coaches will tell you it's going on. I don't even think they're
Mhm.
necessarily trying to hide it,
Right.
because there's nothing illegal about it.
Right.
I mean, how do you say, like, you can't say, well, this kid isn't allowed to walk on and pay for his own school, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if somebody wants to pay him 200 grand, not only can he pay to walk on and pay for his own school, he probably pockets 130 grand a year.
Well, there was a quarterback at Texas State this past season who was in a similar situation. He was a walk-on and basically said, my parents can, afford to send me here, give my
Yep.
scholarship to somebody else. So, yeah, that was a good comparison there, I think.
Yeah. True Divinity wants to know, is Mizzou more competitive nationally in basketball for NIL than they are football? I mean, here's the thing, guys. And we've reported this because I've talked to the people. They're more competitive than you give them credit for. This is not poor Missouri can't afford players. Like that doesn't mean they're going to get them all. That doesn't mean they're going to spend, $13 million on a quarterback, but they're competitive with the vast majority of college football. Now, does Texas A&M have more money than they do in football? Does Kentucky in basketball? Yeah, probably. But they are absolutely competitive, kind of commensurate with what you would expect out of a program like Missouri. Kyle says, whose development is more important for next year's team, Shaw or Diarra? And
Mm,
curious what you think about that, Drew.
that's a good question. For just next year, I would say Mohamed Diarra. He's a little bit bigger. I think he proved a little bit more this season. So I think especially on the boards and in terms of protecting the rim, I would say that they need Diarra to be somebody who can contribute a little bit more regularly.
Okay, see, and I'm actually going the opposite way. I think it's Aiden Shaw because he's got 3 years left, and like Aiden Shaw, I think is a guy that you can see being an excellent college basketball player, like a
Hmm.
very good player. I think Diarra's ceiling is just lower than that. And so I understand what you're saying next year about Diarra, but to me, like Aiden Shaw needs to start on next year's team and then be looking at, if you want this program to go where you want it to go, then his junior year, we're talking about, hey, Aiden Shaw might make an all SEC team.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would lean with that. Eddie wants to know, who fits better in Gates' system, Fardaws, Amak, or Eddie Lampkin, or any other bigs you're eyeing. So, Drew, here's what you're going to find out about the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as a kid is publicly connected to Missouri and we bring him up, then the next 5 days are spent inserting this kid into various lineups and figuring out how many wins he's worth. This is what we do on the internet. Look, I'll just tell you straight up. I saw Fardaws Amak was in the portal again. He was a guy that Missouri offered last year, didn't really gain any traction with, went to Texas Tech. I reached out to somebody I know down in toward Lubbock and said, hey, heard anything about, because I guess he followed Gates on Twitter again or something. I said, have you heard anything about where this kid's going to go? The answer was real simple. Whoever gives him the most money. So he didn't play very much this year. Eddie Lampkin, I know, had some tough things go on and left TCU in kind of a weird situation. Konzo Martin offered him. He's a really good player. I mean, I think he's more proven at this level than Amak is. He's he's a bigger guy, but hey man, they need somebody that can go get rebounds and maybe block a shot here and there. I don't, and I think Lampkin maybe is a little bit more athletic. I could be wrong. Fardaws might be a little more versatile, but I don't know that you'd necessarily turn down either one.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Gates could probably utilize either guy. I think that Lampkin fits a little bit better. I think just because of the athleticism, like you mentioned,
get up and down the floor a little more.
Yeah, can run the floor a little bit better. So I would lean Lampkin there. But I don't know. I mean, Fardaws might work pretty well still. Yeah. I could see it.
Yeah. Adam wants to know if Caleb Brown's scholarship is tied to what Kobe Brown does. Look, man, I don't know. Only the coaching staff can really answer that. It's a tough topic to talk about because I think we all know the reality, but Dennis has been pretty clear. Hey, don't call him Kobe's brother. He's his own guy, all that. So, if you're going to say that, then you got to treat him that way too. So I don't really, I would say the chances are better that Caleb Brown is here next year if Kobe Brown is here next year. Is that a decent enough way to put it?
Yeah, I think that is. And I'll say too, though, I don't think that Caleb necessarily would want to leave if Kobe isn't here. Talking to Kobe and his dad, it sounds like they really like being in Missouri. Right. But yeah, I think it probably is a little bit better if his brother is still around next season.
Yeah. Schilt says if Mosley and Kobe both come back, Mizzou could run a 4-man lineup of 40% three-point shooters. This is what I love about this time of season. Everybody great, man. Everybody's great. And look, it's much more fun to be talking about that than to be where we were 12 months ago today, which is, hey, there's this new coach and how fast can he turn this roster over and get guys that can play at this level, right? So, yeah. I'm not trying to tamp down the optimism. I just it is pretty funny how quickly you go from, oh my God, the despair of the season's over because you lost your last game to immediately looking forward to next year. But look, that's the sign you've got a program people are interested in. Is Mizzou going to have someone who actively attempts to rebound next year?
This is why I brought up Mo Diarra in the last question. I was just like, Mo will actually go and try to get a rebound. And Aiden Shaw did look like he was trying down the stretch.
He has to be that guy.
Yeah, well, especially with the vertical, if he puts on strength and is able to kind of move guys around, I think he'll make a better impact next year.
Well, and here's the thing about the rebounding that I know Drew's tired of hearing me say this because I pointed it out every single game. But it wasn't just that they weren't in position to rebound. I can't count the number of times they were actually in position to rebound, but they just seemed to have such a hard time grabbing the basketball. So many rebounds went off their hands this year and went to the other team that you're just going, and I'm not saying they're a great rebounding team, part of that size, parts positioning, all that, but like they just seem to have they always say like the football bounces weird because it's not round. But like the basketball is round. It shouldn't have been that hard to hold on to. I didn't understand that part of
it. I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry.
It was so very frustrating to me. There you go. Lost rebounds, tipped off their hands. And part of it too is teams shot a lot of 3-pointers against Missouri. So there were a lot of like these rebounds that landed 16 feet from the basket, but yeah, like I really do think that a lot, like they need an hour this summer where it's just put on the shoulder pads, get out the tackling dummies, and we're going to learn about boxing out. And because look, like it or not, no matter how good this season was, in the end, it's why they're not playing this weekend.
Yes, I agree with that.
Or at least a big part of it.
I think it wasn't that big of a concern for them because the mindset was always, we'll make it up in the turnover margin, right? Like we'll get those extra possessions back.
Yeah, but not always.
Well, not against Princeton, not that time.
And like you can get, I don't care if you're getting beat 42-34 on the glass. That's one thing. It's 44-27. I mean, that can't happen with a high major roster.
Yeah. Gabe, and tell me what you think about this, because we talked about how they're, a little below average on the offensive glass, but it was the defensive glass where they were like second to last in the country, right? How much of it do you think is that, because of the way they play, high speed,
that DeMoy Hodge was always at the free throw line on the other end waiting for the pass?
Exactly.
Well, like, to be fair, yeah, a lot of these 70-foot F it DeMoy down there somewhere baseball passes don't happen if DeMoy is attempting to defensive rebound. So that does play a factor, no question.
Yeah. But I don't think you're right that it shouldn't play so much of a factor that they are the second worst team out of 363 of them.
Right. So I think kind of the last question we've got for now from Kyle, and this is really what I'm interested to see. Is this year's team what Gates's teams are going to look like, or is this a product of the roster he had? I'm curious if this is the defense he plays, or if he played this defense because this is what the guys he had could do. And I don't know.
So Dave Matter and I were talking to CY back in Sacramento, and Dave asked, how much of this system is Dennis and how much of it is Leonard Hamilton? And CY told us that the defense is very much Florida State's system, right? It's almost identical to what they do. And I think CY is a big part of that, the 1-3-1 zone and all of the trapping stuff that they do. But the offense was all Dennis, right? Like this is what he wants to do. This is how he wants them to play. So it might look a little bit differently. Every team is going to look different with new personnel, right? But I think that holistically, like in general, I think this is kind of what they want the team to look like. I think they just kind of want to do it with some taller athletes.
Right. Like they want it to be. I mean, I don't think the goal is 8th on offense and 197th on defense. I mean, I think it would be 8th on offense and like 40th on defense, ideally.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So yes, you want to do better at, closing out on shots, not being Bo Jackson running through the Seattle tunnel.
Exactly. So, well, guys, look, we're going to have a little bit of an irregular schedule as far as the podcast. We'll do some, if there's big news, we'll jump on here. We'll throw Gerard Hamilton in here every now and then, Sean Williams on recruiting, just kind of stuff that happens. We'll do shows and I'm going to have the True Tiger shows with different athletes that we're doing, and got a good one this weekend that you guys will be excited about. Just trying to lock down a time and everything. So do appreciate you guys all hanging out with us here throughout the season. It's definitely been, I think, a lot more fun than either of us anticipated that it was going to be on November 1st, and looking forward to the portal and all that. And we're 3 months away from SEC Media Days. So I'm not going to lie, we're going to take some time off, man. We're going to recharge a little bit, but when news happens, we'll hang out here with you and talk about it. So thanks everybody for joining us. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're sharing it on social media. Subscribe because these aren't going to be regularly scheduled shows. So this way, when we go live, if you're subscribed, you're going to get an alert. You're going to know we go live. So if something happens and we're like, hey, we need to do a show about this, if you're subscribed, you find out about it that way. And one last time, I want to thank our buddy James Carlton at carltoninsurance.net. Phone is 314-961-4800. You can get in touch with him for all of your insurance needs if you're in Missouri or Illinois. You can also get in touch with him and get a quote and say, hey, I just want you to look, I already have good insurance, but I want you to toss $20 toward Every True Tiger Foundation and Mizzou's NIL collective. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for everything Drew has done this year. And look, this is just like temporarily goodbye. We'll be back at some point. See you.
Yeah.